Hello and welcome. I'm Jamie Watts, a Montessori educator of more than 20 years, director of the Little River Montessori School in Knoxville, Tennessee, author and co-founder of the Montessori School of Education, and someone who's passionately curious about why the Montessori method works so profoundly well. Over the last several years, while conducting research for my doctorate, I immerse myself in fields that often seem far from the classroom: systems theory, evolutionary anthropology, and developmental neuroscience. What I found blew me away. Not only did these disciplines help me better understand what was happening in Montessori classrooms, they affirmed it. Again and again, I came across research that said, in essence, this is what human beings are wired for. So today I want to share 2.5 big ideas that I believe are worth every Montessorian's time. Two of them, complex adaptive systems and embedded ancestral learning expectations, come from well-established fields of scholarship. The third, the instinct to culture spiral, is my own contribution, developed through this research and decades of classroom experience. I call it 2.5 because while I believe deeply in the spiral's value, I want to present it with humility. It doesn't carry the academic weight of the other two yet, but it might just offer us a new lens to see what we're already doing. My goal in this video is simple: to show you that the Montessori method isn't just beautiful and effective. It's scientifically aligned with how humans have always learned. These ideas can help us name what we do, defend it more clearly, and advocate for it more powerfully. Let's get started. Our first big idea comes from systems theory, and it's a game changer. Montessori classrooms are not just thoughtfully designed spaces, they are living systems. In systems theory, a complex adaptive system, or CAS, is a system made up of many interconnected parts called agents that interact, adapt, and evolve over time. Think of ecosystems, immune systems, cultures, and yes, classrooms. In a CAS, small changes ripple outward. Behavior isn't predictable or linear, it emerges through interaction. Order doesn't come from a top-down script, it arises from the relationships within the system itself. Montessorians, this should sound familiar. Our classrooms are filled with multi-age students interacting with materials, guides, and each other. Routines evolve, community norms emerge, even classroom culture shifts in subtle, self-organizing ways. And here's the thing: KAS theory explains why our classrooms feel alive, why we guide rather than control, why observation matters more than management. In a KS, control doesn't work. What works is creating the right conditions. That's exactly what a Montessori guide does. We're not managing behavior, we're cultivating an ecosystem. A moment of conflict becomes a feedback loop. A child's quiet repetition becomes a stabilizing force. A morning's rhythm creates self-organization without ever needing to say, line up. Systems theory gives us language to describe what Maria Montessori observed long before we had the science. When she said the teacher should disappear into the environment, she wasn't being mystical. She was describing the dynamics of emergence. Montessori classrooms are complex adaptive systems. When we understand that, we stop trying to control the learning and start learning how to listen to the system. The second big idea is grounded in anthropology and evolutionary developmental psychology. It's this: Montessori education aligns almost uncannily with the way human children were always meant to learn. For 95% of our species' history, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. We survive not through schooling, but through embedded participatory learning. Children learned by observing, imitating, playing, storytelling, and contributing meaningfully to community life. And when anthropologists study modern day foraging societies like the Hadza or the San, they find something remarkable. Children learn autonomously, joyfully, and through real life engagement. There are no lectures, no worksheets, no bells, and yet children grow into competent, socially embedded, emotionally grounded adults. These are what we call ancestral learning expectations, developmental patterns that evolved long before formal education ever existed. The problem is, most modern schooling creates an evolutionary mismatch. We confine children, fragment knowledge, reward compliance, and remove learning from its context. But Montessori reverses the mismatch. Just look, real tools, real responsibilities, real contribution. Mixed age groups, like tribal cohorts, freedom of movement, autonomy, and long stretches of uninterrupted activity. Learning through hands on materials, not abstract lectures. Social emotional development woven into the fabric of the day. Maria Montessori didn't have access to this evolutionary research, but her method resonates deeply with what forager communities have always known. Children learn best in environments that honor their nature. That's why Montessori feels so natural. It's not new, it's ancient, it's just been rediscovered. And in a world that's becoming increasingly abstract, fast paced, and disconnected, Montessori education offers a return to what is developmentally true, not primitive, not nostalgic, but deeply aligned with the blueprint we carry in our bones. This last idea is the point 5 in our title, because while it's not as widely established in the literature as XIAS or ancestral learning, it's something I've been developing through my research and experience as a Montessori educator. I call it the instinct to culture spiral, and I believe it can help us understand why Montessori works the way it does. Here's the idea. We are born with instincts for learning, drives to move, to imitate, to repeat, to explore, to bond. But those instincts don't exist in isolation. They are shaped by feedback. Over time, that feedback becomes pattern. Pattern becomes ritual. Ritual becomes shared meaning, and shared meaning becomes culture. It's a spiral because the process doesn't just move upward, it loops, it refines, and it continues shaping how instincts evolve in the next generation. Let me give you an example. A child instinctively mimics an adult using a broom. At first, it's playful, but the guide notices and offers a child sized broom. The child begins to repeat the action, the environment supports it. Other children begin sweeping too. Over time, this behavior becomes part of the classroom culture. We take care of our space. What began as an instinct becomes part of a shared identity. This is what Montessori environments do. They shape instinct into culture, not by force, but by structure, rhythm, and relationship. In fact, you can trace the whole method through this spiral. Movement becomes mastery, curiosity becomes concentration, sensory input becomes abstraction, repetition becomes responsibility, observation becomes empathy. What I love about this model is that it helps us talk about how culture forms inside a classroom and how it changes over time. It also helps us take instinct seriously, not as something to be controlled, but as a starting point. Montessori didn't just design materials, she designed spirals of becoming. And if we look closely, we can see those spirals everywhere in the child, in the classroom, and in ourselves. So let's pause and recap what we've explored so far. First, we looked at the idea that Montessori classrooms function as complex adaptive systems, living ecosystems where learning emerges through interaction, feedback, and self organization. Then we examined how Montessori aligns with ancestral learning expectations, the ways human beings have always learned through autonomy, movement, observation, and participation in meaningful life. And finally, we introduced the instinct to culture spiral, a model that describes how raw human drives, when supported and shaped, become the culture of a classroom and ultimately the identity of a community. Together, these 2.5 ideas give us something powerful, a deeper way to understand what we do as Montessori educators and why it works. They also give us something else, a language to advocate. Because let's be honest, Montessorians have known these truths for over a century. But in a world shaped by data, systems, and policy, it helps to be able to say, this is not just a philosophy, it's a model grounded in complex systems theory. This isn't just hands on learning, it's aligned with the evolutionary design of childhood. We're not just guiding behavior, we're stewarding the emergence of culture. When we speak this way, we can reach not just other educators, but researchers, policymakers, parents, and future allies. We can make the case that Montessori education is not a niche alternative. It's not a trend. It's a developmentally aligned, biologically coherent, socially responsible model for how humans learn and grow. And we need that now more than ever because the challenges we face, educational, ecological, cultural, won't be solved by teaching children to memorize more facts or follow more rules. They'll be solved by a generation raised in systems that honor complexity, support interdependence, and trust the deep intelligence of living things. That's what Montessori does. And these ideas help us explain how and why it matters. If this sparks something in you, if you found yourself nodding, curious, or even a little energized, here's what I'd love for you to do next. First, trust what you're sensing. If you've been in Montessori education for a while, these ideas probably didn't feel foreign. They felt familiar. They're giving language to something you already know in your bones. Second, go deeper. I wrote 2 books that explore these ideas more fully: The Ancestral Learning Model and Spirals and Systems. They're free with Amazon Unlimited, accessible, and written for educators like you. But if you're not quite ready to dive into a whole book, that's okay. I've also created a few shorter YouTube videos on this channel that unpack these concepts one at a time. They're a great way to ease in, maybe while you're folding laundry or commuting. Links to the books are in the description. Third, start a conversation. Bring one of these ideas to your next team meeting. Ask, what would happen if we looked at our classroom like a living system? Or, where do we already see ancestral learning at work? And finally, share this video with a friend, a colleague, a training center. We need more Montessorians connecting with research, reframing our work, and claiming our place in the future of education. We have something the world desperately needs. These 2.5 ideas help us explain it. Let's be loud about that. Let's be wise, and let's keep spiraling forward together.